Good morning, everybody. Welcome in. Hello, Sarah. Very nice to have you here. Absolutely hope they don't forget any bolts or anything else for that matter. It's very nice to see you. Radio check, in fact, Sarah, how do you hear me? Hello, Cold. How are you? Good to see you. Hello, Jupiter. Good to see you. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate it very much. I have the audio for NASA down.
Good.
Let's bring it in now.
Will use this poll to determine his own response to the final go, no-go poll by the launch conductor just before liftoff.
Once we do get into the terminal countdown time frame, there are a few major activities that the team will oversee. The first is Starliner's transition from ground power to battery power. That comes about 18 minutes before launch, and we leave it as late as possible so we can launch with those
Hey,
batteries.
Master Snake. Good to see you.
Hydraulic final preps are
Good day.
Roger. minus 27 minutes.
Can you confirm that you're hearing me okay? This is a slightly different setup than I normally have when I'm streaming my show over on Twitch. It's actually an entirely different installation of the same software, but it's a standalone installation from the Twitch live stream. Perfect. Thank you so much.
15 seconds before launch, they'll work with the crew to activate the launch abort system, which would rocket the crew to safety in the case of an abort or on the pad early in the ascent.
This will likely be the last you hear from us until liftoff. So we are going to send you back to the team in Florida to let Megan, Dee, and Mike see us through the rest of the countdown. Go Starliner.
Now let's take a closer look at Starliner, the next generation crew capsule that you see atop the Atlas V rocket there on launch pad. Starliner is something, like you said, and Butch and Sunny, you guys really have your fingerprints all over that to make it the ride to space that you guys wanted.
Hello, I see you, Fuda. How are you?
Starliner
Good to see you.
Is definitely Ferguson even called it a astronaut or pilot spacecraft.
And so that next generation
It's good to see
crew
all of
capsule,
you.
it measures 16.5 feet tall with a diameter of 15 feet. That's about the size of a mid-size SUV. It was designed to carry up to 7 astronauts or a mix of crew and cargo for missions to the International Space Station. After today's test flight, NASA will fly crews of 4 or 5 with cargo. Starliner is also reusable up to 10 times. I'm sure you're excited for your opportunity to fly in Starliner, Mike.
Oh, indeed. We're hopefully Butch and Sunny, along with Calypso, are going to pave the way. We'll be in the other spacecraft that Boeing has. We have 2 capsules, and so again, it's always good to have an extra one and a backup one, and we're looking forward to flying next year.
Let's head back over to Johnson now, where we have Rob Navius with an update for us. Rob.
Can you folks please confirm that you can see a decent video quality? I'm trying not to just talk to fill time here. I'd like to interact with you and actually add information that's useful. I just want to make sure that you're getting a good, clean picture and good audio.
On the station, NASA astronauts Matt Dominic, Tracy Dyson, Jeanette Epps, and Mike Barrett are preparing spacesuits.
Oh, very good. Thank you so much.
For a trio of
Fuda, how you feeling? How you doing, buddy?
On June 13th.
Excellent. Glad to hear.
Other maintenance work is also planned for today by the expedition crew as they gear up for the docking of Starliner tomorrow to the forward port.
Is my audio level relative to the NASA feed audio acceptable?
Visiting vehicle at the International Space Station, a crowded house 260 miles above the Earth. We're standing by here in Mission Control for the Atlas V to take flight and for a new chapter in human spaceflight history to begin just 23 minutes from now. With that, we'll head back now to the Kennedy Space Center.
23 minutes, 9 seconds and counting until
Thank you both.
A
lot of moving parts and pieces.
ULA's Dylan Rice and Boeing's Lauren Brennicky with the latest.
minus 23
Guys.
minutes.
Hey, Megan. Thanks for coming back to us here in the
SYS,
ASOC. We've
switch
been
all
monitoring.
secondary decoms to RF link and verify lock.
Roger.
There's a whole lot of people talking at the same time between the NASA folks, the mission control folks, the commentators on the video, and myself.
Monitoring those procedures.
Hey, Dead
here,
Horse, you legend. How are you, buddy?
On about,
Good morning.
L minus 22 minutes to launch. And around this time during the last launch attempt, our team worked through.
I'd like to just remind everybody that the launch window for this mission is instantaneous. There is no wiggle room to hold on the pad. If they do have to hold,
at L minus 18 minutes,
they will have to reschedule the flight. They will scrub.
And flight software correctly identified it and turned off the fans. So we quickly turned them back on, just like you would do with your computer, off and on. And today we're going to turn the fan off when we move over to internal power so it doesn't trip again. Then we will turn it back on after. The real difference is that crew will lower their visors about 5 minutes later this time. That action would usually be taken around now, or a minute or so from now, and we will listen for that in just a few minutes. The Capcom will tell the crew to put their visors down at that time, and that is a configuration that is needed for proper.
So what we're looking at here is the stack of the United Launch Alliance Atlas V
Pressure charge is complete.
booster rocket, and on top of it is the Boeing manufactured Starliner CST-100. And that this is the first time the CST-100 has flown with astronauts on board.
I did copy that. Please check your headset.
Yep, they got some audio issues over there. No holds at all.
All right, as I was saying, that in an
no holds
emergency,
at all.
they would be able to pressurize their suits quickly.
Yeah, I used this analogy on the scrub launch the other day. Think of this as if the rocket is a surfer trying to catch a wave. Given the nature of the flight profile they're flying, they either have to be up and away like a surfer catching a wave at exactly the right moment, or they'll miss their connection, their rendezvous with the International Space Station.
L-19, we're also going to be looking for the Starliner readiness poll for terminal count. That will happen on a side channel, so I'll be listening for that, and I'll let you know.
So they've flown the CST-100 spacecraft
That one is short.
twice before, but it was empty. There were no humans on board. And both of those missions had issues.
The spacecraft launch conductor, Brian Gartner, will pull people in that room in charge of the propulsion
They
system.
did get the CST-100 back, but they had problems that were unacceptable, which is why they made them fly a second test flight, and why we're only getting to a crew test flight now.
RC, verify solar radiation, acceptable for launch. Verified.
ULA there, that logo, of course, refers to United Launch Alliance, which is a joint venture between Lockheed and Boeing. And Boeing, on its own, but with subcontractors, is the manufacturer of the actual capsule carrying the astronauts on top.
But again, there will be 3 calls coming up on this Starliner readiness poll for terminal count. They will pull the mission support.
That's 100% correct, Jupiter ICUD Fuda.
Mission support as things shift over to Houston.
Yeah, the very first one, there was a clock timing problem. The spacecraft didn't realize exactly where it was, and they never reached the space station on that one. They did reach the space station on the second flight.
This is the LC with a terminal count briefing. If a condition exceeds a launch constraint anytime after the terminal count status check, the observer shall announce hold on channel 1, identify their station, and briefly state the reason for the hold.
The Atlas V configuration that's flying today does have 2 small solid rocket boosters. You can see one of them there at the bottom of the spacecraft on the left-hand side.
Bringing everybody to the
there is another one on the other side.
For the final for the final minutes of the countdown here. So
this is not considered to be a controversial part of the design of this rocket for most folks. I'm personally not a favor of putting solid rocket boosters on spacecraft carrying human beings.
L-minus 18 minutes. Flight control, perform launch on time verification. Roger.
Historically, the U.S. has not done it very often, but quite significantly, they did it with the Space Shuttle program. And it is a part of the Artemis program at the moment,
up the road at the Morrell Operations Center. So if there's
which is somewhat derivative of like a giant space shuttle launch system.
Those hold fire switches will be configured shortly, and we'll also start to hear calls about wrapping up our helium bottle charging on both the first and second stage.
Reminder, they are launching today with a known helium leak
on the loops increasing a little bit
in the Starliner itself.
That we are speaking less, and so we are going to be listening to some of these things as they happen live with you.
Roger.
And we feel it's important for you to be able to...
Go ahead.
AHB charging reestablished and at flight mass.
Roger.
Yeah, Sarah, as I indicated, they're not. It's not considered a very controversial issue for most folks. But it certainly is not something that
Verify FCO, RCO, and OSM
I'm personally a fan of. SpaceX has managed to avoid the need for them on Falcon, and of course, definitely don't have them on Starship. That doesn't make it right or wrong. I'm just saying it's an example.
It's a beautiful day to fly.
I don't know if Morton Thiokol is still making them. I don't actually remember. I feel like there's been a corporate change there.
Beautiful shot of our beaches here from the courtesy of
but I try and cover the whole range of flight from what's going on with light training aircraft all the way up to Starship. And that's one detail I don't actually know with certainty.
Clouds on land, which you see some of it there, but because they're low topped, that's not a concern. When a rocket flies through a big, thick cumulus cloud,
yeah, Starship should fly tomorrow, and it probably will have some spectacular element to it.
And so we're good.
The launch will certainly be spectacular, one way or the other. I have my doubts about that platform's practicality as well.
And from where? And our friends at United Launch Alliance provided us with this graphic so you can see about which point in the launch you would see the rocket. If you're within the first two inner circles, you should be able to see the solid rocket booster.
I attended a panel discussion at an AIAA, that's the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, annual gathering in Washington, D.C., well, Virginia, actually, one year. And
after more than about 2 minutes,
late Wally Schirra was on the panel
of Florida, the southeast corner of Georgia,
and it was
might be able to see the Atlas.
It was after Challenger, but it was before the other accidents in the shuttle program, and I had asked him about his opinion about shuttle safety, and I can't repeat what he said over this stream. But he had expressed some very specific concerns about solid rocket motors as well, carrying human beings.
LC flight, air to ground 1, ready for comm check with Starliner on channel 1. Roger. Starliner, LC, comm check on channel 1.
Those are comm checks
again?
Yeah, the dear moon thing is very, very interesting.
You see there. Again,
very interesting.
Houston, comm check, air to ground 1.
I saw some credible reporting that several weeks ago, perhaps over a month ago now, Musk had unfollowed the guy who had written the check for the Dear Moon effort on Twitter. That's what I'm calling it. I'm sticking with Twitter.
And Boeing is working towards certification to do
that.
That's
a whole nother conversation.
7 flight test objectives and many more operational capability checkouts. So take a look at some of the main objectives with the crew.
I feel bad for everybody that thought they were going to get to go for a ride on Starship around the moon.
Equipment. The crew will perform hatch operations.
Tim, the guy known as Everyday Astronaut, really works very hard, has done a lot to make spaceflight accessible for folks, and he was really looking forward to that, along with the other participants.
They'll conform functionality of manual piloting.
Thanks, Sarah.
The orbit with a successful separation of the crew module.
You can fly with me anytime.
Service module. And finally, they will demonstrate.
So I don't know if you're
entry
aware of this, but one of the things that's unique
descent.
about this flight profile, it's one of the reasons why
13 minutes and
the launch
24
window is
seconds,
instantaneous.
only the 6th time
The
NASA
Atlas
astronauts will
V
launch
is
on a
only
new
going to
spacecraft
deliver
designed for crew. And if you're curious about the previous
the
5 flights, we
Starliner
have you covered.
into a
Check out our video
suborbital
here.
flight trajectory, and that's intentional. That is not
Mercury
that is not an
Redstone 3 was
earlier
the first
flight of
test flight
Starliner
out
on your
of
screen.
Shepard, May 5th.
Well, hello. Thank you for
1961.
checking in, Sweden. How are you, Devra? Good to see you.
Gemini 3 with astronauts Gus Grissom and John Young launched March 23rd, 1965.
Apollo 7.
Crew cuts
October
represent.
11th, 1968, with Wally Schirra, Don Isley.
I love that footage on the left. Hello, Desiree.
STS-1
Very nice to
launched
see you.
with astronauts John Young and Robert
Absolutely,
Crippen,
Sarah.
launched April
100%.
12th, 1981.
Many of you know that I've actually shot 3 space shuttle landings at Edwards Air Force Base in person.
You saw video of there.
Excellent,
Demo 2,
Devra.
May 2020.
I hope you're
Doug
feeling
Hurley,
well,
Bob
and I hope you
Rankin.
get to rest well on your day off.
And then, of course, today's NASA's and Boeing's crew flight test.
Just
with
as a
Butch
reminder,
Williams
Sonny and Butch
Wilmore, and Sonny
are
Williams.
2
You know, Mike, 12 minutes,
classic
15 seconds to go. How are you feeling?
amazing
I am
people,
excited. I'm grateful
overachievers,
to, ULA
the 2 of them,
Boeing and NASA
both
team
test pilots
that we are
and
sharing
test flight
this
engineers.
historic moment together.
I'm doing
on
air quotes,
Starliner.
but I'm not using
Yeah,
I'm not
hearts
using
and
the camera
well-wishes
today.
are with Butch and Sonny as they make history testing what is poised to be the second
Oh, you bet, Sarah.
commercial crew vehicle that is certified to ferry people to and from the International Space Station. So with 11 minutes and 46 seconds to go, let's send it back over to ULA's Dylan Rice and Boeing's
So
Lauren
they're
Benke to
they're
walk us through the
delivering
final
Atlas
moments
V is
of
going to
today's
deliver
launch countdown. Let's do
Starliner
it,
into
guys.
a
Let's do it,
suborbital
Megan.
trajectory,
We just heard the Starliner readiness poll.
and that's
is
so that if there's
go.
a
We know
problem
the
or a
cruise
failure,
visors are down now, so
without
we are
any
moving along smoothly
minimal
into
risk,
the
I should say,
final
to the crew,
11 minutes and 30 seconds
they can
of this
abort
countdown.
the
This
mission
is
and
an
recover
instantaneous launch
Starliner
window today,
through the
which means
atmosphere,
that we will launch from the
re-enter,
orbital path
and
where the ISS
land.
aligns with the Space Coast.
After
Once we get into
they
orbit,
get into their
Starliner will be
suborbital
working to catch up
trajectory
with
and
the
everything
space
checks out
station,
okay,
eventually reaching speeds
there's
of
a
more than
fairly powerful
17,500
Centaur upper
miles per
stage
hour.
that will
It'll take about
boost
25 hours or so to get there.
Starliner itself
And we are
up to
gonna
the
be
International
launching
Space
here any
Station.
minute
So that,
for the
but that
crew
is
access
why
arm.
that is why the instantaneous flight window.
Roger.
Right on cue. Crew access arm about to start moving away from the spacecraft. And Dylan, we will watch it.
Is
move
it
very
just me, or
slowly
does
today, but it
does
could
the
move
the
much faster if
spacecraft
needed.
combined with that booster feel somewhat small compared to what we typically expect
stowed position and latched position on the crew access
of
tower.
a crewed spacecraft?
But we could, in the event of an emergency, redeploy it in less than 15 seconds.
It's amazing that it can do that. We hope to not.
I don't actually have
ever
it
see that
memorized,
happen.
and I should. But it feels like
After
it's a
liftoff
smaller
today,
system
Brandy and
than
Jen will
Falcon
continue
9
commentary
with Crew
from
Dragon.
Houston through
There's a
ascent,
good look at the
spacecraft
second solid
separation,
rocket
and the
booster.
orbital insertion burn. We will have the shot of Butch and Sonny inside Starliner until the moment of launch. And then we
Atlas
will
is
get
liquid
it again when we
oxygen
get to the
and
ISS.
basically a rocket-grade kerosene-fueled rocket.
Verify CST 100 on internal power. Verified.
The oxygen is, of course,
Starliner,
cryogenic,
configure ordnance for launch.
so very cold. That's why you see
All right, the spacecraft
the
is running
gassing
completely
off.
on its own now. And they are configuring ordnance for launch. That means the devices that initiate our separation events are ready to support both nominal and contingency operations that, that happen or could happen during ascent.
So, Lauren, we're just about 2.5 minutes now away from our terminal count status check. The terminal count status check is the final report from each operator indicating that their system, whether it be a ground control system or a launch vehicle system, is ready to execute the final 4 minutes.
Reminder again that the last attempt was scrubbed because...
At this point, if there were an issue, the anomaly team would be discussing it, but nothing like that is happening right
Indeed,
now.
Sarah. That is that's a typical aerospace understatement.
Chief Launch Conductor Doug Lebo.
And we're actually hearing on a side channel that they are preparing for the launch vehicle systems poll. This is the long one. A lot of people view this as their favorite poll. It's
So
kind of fun
they
to
scrubbed
listen
the last
them list
attempt
off each
because
system,
one of the
and then that team will give a
computers that
final
control
go or no
the
go from launch.
sequencing of the umbilical separation and bolt firing
And we will
of the
be able
hold
to
down
watch
system
cameras on the rocket today, and live
that
telemetry
secure that
feeding back
rocket
will
to the
provide
stand
a real-time look at the spacecraft model when video
was
isn't possible during the ascent as it moves through
not
the dynamic
failing but
phases.
malfunctioning, one of three, and they were early enough in the count that their criteria told them to hold the count and scrub the launch. Tori Bruno, the president and CEO of United Launch Alliance, explained recently on camera on the stream before I went live that had they been a little further along, closer to
Under
launch,
8 minutes before
they
Butch
could
and
have
Sunny
gone
head
and they
back
would
to a
have
place
gone
they
with
consider
just the
home.
two computer
Both of
systems
them
that control
have
that
spent 2 different
sequencing.
stints of about 6 months on the International Space Station. And they
100%,
are
Sarah.
thrilled to be going back for a third time.
That skirt under the Starliner
told me she
capsule at
even
the top
cried
is
the
there
last time
for
she left the
essentially
space
just
station because
aerodynamic
she didn't know if
purposes.
she would ever go back. So this flight is a dream for her.
There really isn't much going on there in terms of carrying of cargo or structure.
LC switch to ready position. All steps are complete prior to status check.
At its most basic, what we're talking about here is basically a rocket-powered cannon shot.
Final terminal count status check as we prepare for launch.
-7 minutes. Status check to proceed with terminal count. Atlas,
The weather is
propulsion.
forecast to be 90%
Hydraulic.
acceptable, and it looks like that forecast is turning out to be correct.
Water. Go. Centaur systems. Propulsion. Go. Pneumatics. Go. LO2. Go. LH2.
Go.
Has gas. Go. Electrical systems. Airborne. Go. Ground. Go. Facility.
Exactly, Sarah.
Go.
Undesirable,
RFMTS. Go.
but
Flight control. Go. GCQ. Go.
not necessarily
Go. Com.
terminal.
Go. Umbilicals. Go. Arm control. Go. ECS. Go. Redline monitor. Go. Quality. Go. Op safety manager. Go. ULA safety officer. Go. Vehicle system engineer. Go. Anomaly chief. Go. Range coordinator. Clear to proceed. Flight director. Houston flight is go. Starliner. Starliner go. Launch director. You have permission to launch. Proceeding with the count.
All right, this is looking good.
ALC, verify T0 is set for 14:52:15 Zulu.
I wish these folks a very safe and successful flight. I'm sure you all do as well.
Net is clear.
Thank you, LC. For everybody listening, just a thought. Sonny and I, as we were traveling to the pad, we saw many American flags, and many of you were waving flags at us. And then as we reached the pad, we look up, and of course there's that American flag on the side of the white room, also one on the side of the rocket itself. And we know that that represents unity and resilience and unified efforts for the common good. And that's what Sonny and I have witnessed this last month. Each of you displaying what this nation's forefathers envisioned, a people committed to God, family, and country, a people who use their gifts and talents for the common good, and are passionate and tough. And we all know that when the going gets tough, and it often does, the tough get going. And you have. And Sonny and I are honored to share this dream of spaceflight with each and every one of you. So with that, LC, let's get going. Now let's put some fire in this rocket, and let's push it to the heavens where all these tough Americans have prepared it to be.
Let's go, Calypso. Take us to space and back.
LC flight, Starliner configured for terminal count. On my marker.
Calypso is the name of this particular spacecraft, by the way. That is referring to the Starliner itself. So this is Starliner Calypso.
Clocks have resumed for on-time liftoff.
Just beautiful words from Butch there. No better example of unity on this planet than what happens at the International Space Station, where Butch and Sonny are headed in just 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
3:30.
Atlas hydraulics at flight press.
Atlas boosters hydraulic steering systems now pressurized for launch.
That weather does look
Starliner's
absolutely
LAS
spectacular.
top valves are configured for launch. The propulsion
Again, we are
valves
launching
need to
from
be open
Florida,
in the case of an abort from the pad.
Southeast USA.
Pressurizing Atlas tanks.
Those
Secure yellow, 2 top.
tall radio tower looking things surrounding
250.
the launch pad. I believe every one of those with the white objects at the top are to attract and prevent lightning strikes on the spacecraft or the launch platform itself. They're essentially lightning rods.
Flight software is in ascent mode. It is now set for the uphill climb.
Yeah, they don't want lightning striking any of the tanks, the rocket itself, obviously the capsule, and that's an issue in Florida, needless to say. This spacecraft is really shaped like an evolution of the Apollo capsule, but built with modern engineering and materials, and of course avionics.
Securing Centaur LH2.
Securing Centaur LO2.
Centaur is the upper stage.
Vehicle is now transferred to its onboard batteries, and topping is
140.
completed.
That is the rocket that will be boosting the capsule.
FTS armed.
Indeed, Sarah. Unlike Atlas, Centaur is hydrogen and liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen.
Starliner, last arm to auto.
All right, we're about 1 minute away.
Last arm auto. Roger.
I think spacecraft on the pad have been hit by lightning, and on launch, I think there was a lightning strike.
Block report range status. Range green. 54. POP started.
Less than a minute. Thanks for joining me, everybody.
We'll trigger the launch abort system on Starliner and fire automatically. If that happened, the spacecraft would push itself away from the rocket a mile up and a mile out.
Atlas at flight press.
30. Centaur at flight press. 25. Status check. Go Atlas. Go Centaur.
20 seconds.
Starliner. Godspeed, Butch and Sonny.
Ten seconds.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Starliner Atlas V, carrying 2 American heroes, drawing a line to the stars for all of us.
They've cleared the tower. That spacecraft is accelerating rapidly.
Calling down to Mission Control here in Houston that the spacecraft has begun rolling into the right attitude for its
Calypso literally leapt off the pad.
Here in the room, seeing good data on that.
The sight and the sounds never get old.
Starliner passing through max Q, or the point of maximum dynamic pressure where the forces of air friction are highest, which in Sunny will shortly be passing through Mach 1, where the speed of sound.
Looks fairly nominal to me. Looking down past one of the solid rocket motors. Chunks of ice falling off the side of the spacecraft, which is pretty typical. Me too, Sarah, me too.
Starliner and Atlas. Looking good with speeds and attitude increasing as expected. Coming up in less than 20 seconds, the solid rocket boosters will run out of fuel and burn out.
One of the things that's hard to visualize is how rapidly the power to weight ratio of this spacecraft is changing as we're watching it ascend.
The fuel in the solid rocket boosters has been depleted. The Atlas main booster stage will be continuing its burn for about the next 3 minutes.
Both those solid rocket boosters and the main booster fuel tanks are being emptied as the spacecraft is accelerating upward into increasingly thinner air, less resistance. Now that doesn't affect power to weight ratio, but the reduction in weight certainly does.
If needed. All looking good so far. Now 2 minutes into
there goes the solid rocket boosters, and we're getting a very good indication, a very good visual indication of the flat trajectory of this spacecraft. It's pitching over very dramatically this early into the flight, on its way to that suborbital trajectory.
CLG in that good trajectory.
CLG.
The solid rocket boosters have now been jettisoned after seeing Starliner through its first 90 seconds of flight. Team on the ground here confirming that it was a good jettison and that the vehicle's trajectory continues to look good. Now 3 minutes into today's flight.
No, you never did, not please. It's nice to have you here. I'm very honored that you made the trip over. Thank you. I appreciate all of you wonderful folks that are from the community over on Twitch coming to join me.
Atlas booster now throttling back to limit the G-forces on Butch and Sunny, trying to limit that to around 3.5 times the force of gravity you would feel while on the ground.
Thank you very much. ULA is not known for its deep space coverage on their rockets. I don't know whether that will change on this flight or not, but I'm saying that because we might be switching to animation view fairly soon. They're known for having a camera mounted in the way that we're looking at this view at the moment, and they call it rocket cam footage. Wow, there we go. I've watched a few United Launch Alliance rockets launch in the past. And what they traditionally do, okay, there's separation. We're looking at the RL-10s on the Centaur upper stage. These are liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen fueled motors.
Staging.
Here in the ground.
Exactly. But ULA is known for then releasing the rocket cam footage later. They just don't send it during telemetry on the ascent. Just a different approach.
On top of Starliner that's been protecting
there goes that skirt.
Docking system through its climate
I don't know if you could see it passing by.
As planned.
Staging was good. You have good control.
And now the second stage's 2 Centaur engines have ignited to continue pushing Starliner into space, fueled by liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. The next milestone that we'll be watching for is the aeroskirt jettison.
I think the aeroskirt already jettisoned. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought I saw half of it go past camera a moment ago. You can see that structural...
Starliner, you had good booster performance. You're up to plus 31.
That scaffolding-like structure. That was covered earlier by that circular skirt.
Atlas Control reporting booster performance offset of 31 seconds of ISP, or specific impulse, relative to its design baseline of around...
Those engines are capable of gimbaling, as far as I know. And I believe I saw them gimbaling a moment ago. This spacecraft system is also covered with other reaction jets, reaction rockets, thrusters. That's part. There you go. You just see an animation of them firing. In fact, that's part of the calculus for the issue with the helium leak.
All continuing to perform well, almost 7 minutes into today's flight.
Because the helium is used in the yes, indeed, about the gimbaling. The helium appears to be used, the pressurized helium, to control the valves on one of the redundant thrusters in the Starliner system itself. And so
Capcom Joshua Kutrick.
There were software changes and assessments made to make sure that if they did in fact lose that valve and that control system due to the helium leak, they could return to Earth safely. This view of the animation, if you can imagine just the capsule at the very, very top, you can see how similar in shape it is to the legacy Apollo capsules.
Starliner is now entering its first guided abort range, where Starliner would direct itself towards a specific location in the event of abort. In this case, just off the coast of St. John's, the capital of the Canadian province of Newfoundland Labrador.
They are going quite north, which is a bit unusual. I don't know if you picked up on that. He just talked about how they're going past Newfoundland. This is not going straight at the equator, which is typical for many launches from Florida, because that flight along the equator to the east actually saves you some energy budget.
Starliner MECO converged 11:5 to 11:52. Good perf, you're at 34 to 36 seconds.
11:52, 34 seconds.
That call letting the crew know that the main engine cutoff, MECO, should happen just about on time, about 12 minutes into today's flight. Another good indication that Starliner's ascent is taking along exactly as expected. Main engine cutoff is a major milestone marking Starliner's arrival on orbit.
Devra, you had me at Delta V.
Still got about 2.5 minutes until we get to that, with the spacecraft continuing to perform well, make its way towards orbit.
No
it's
action,
interesting.
Starliner on the LCL, that's just the system coming up into controlling mode.
It's interesting to see their nomenclature. They refer to the next major event as main engine cutoff, where traditionally that's used to describe the engines on the first stage or booster.
Just short of 15 minutes after launch, when Starliner will separate from the rocket and fly free in space for the first time.
But they are using it, of course, to describe the RL-10s that are powering the Centaur upper stage. The Centaur system itself is quite well known, quite well understood. It's been flying for decades. It's not that common to see it with two
Flight Dynamics officer reporting that at this point,
two Centaurs,
potentially make an abort landing off the coast of Ireland.
Two Centaur rocket nozzles, but that is what they're doing
again,
to achieve their performance goals with this system.
As Starliner is rapidly approaching orbital velocity, the support region is only available for just over 1 minute, where Starliner would just continue up to orbit after that.
You like that, Notley? Yeah. Yeah, it's part of why this contract was so expensive, and I'm not trying to be anything other than analytical here. Atlas is a legacy system. Centaur's a legacy system. The capsule design is an evolved legacy system
until main engine cutoff,
made by a legacy contractor. And it's got an extensive flight history. ULA has one of the best flight reliability records as a company in the world. It's very admirable. They've been used for so many of the deep space missions and national security payloads prior to SpaceX showing up. Really very highly regarded, but also very expensive and not the most agile as a company. They moved in traditional ways.
Nominal MECO Starliner.
But it's a very storied past as well. They've accomplished great things with extraordinary extraordinary flights to their credit.
We've got good energy, meaning a good velocity for continuing to orbit, and a good plane, meaning Starliner's trajectory is aligned with the.
Can you imagine the view that Sonny and Butch have right now, flying that low altitude at that speed?
Williams returned to orbit. Individually, they are both extremely experienced astronauts.
It is heckin' cool. Centaurs are heckin' cool for sure.
1452.
They're both very experienced astronauts with a combined total of 489 days in space between them. Starliner is also the third spacecraft that they've launched in. Both have traveled to the International Space Station.
This is again the first flight
Soyuz, and are now well on their way to repeating the
of the Boeing CST-100 Starliner with people on board.
That Williams' role as pilot marks the first time that a woman has crewed a flight test of an orbital spacecraft.
Just a few seconds ago, you heard Capcom Joshua Kucher calling up to Butch and Sonny.
Thank you, Dead Horse. I appreciate you, buddy.
With the expected time, Starliner will separate from Centaur at about 14 minutes, 52 seconds into flight. Just under 2 minutes from now, or 1 minute from now.
When you see the thrusters firing,
major milestone for Starliner's ascent. All the hard work.
It sometimes strikes me as amazing that they have enough propellant on board
There's a slight pause in the action here
to run them as often as they do.
Does some attitude control. We'll get into the right orientation to send Centaur on its way, and then jettison it and move into the right orientation for the orbital insertion burn, which will come about 31 minutes into flight.
Also, just to keep in mind, nothing here except the capsule will be reusable. Atlas is gone. It's not landing and being recovered, and the Centaur will be disposed of, and it will not be recovered. Nobody recovers their upper stages at all so far. That includes SpaceX. And in fact, on the Starship launch, they're going to be jettisoning a hot fire structural element, and that will be thrown away, which will make Starship no longer a 100% reusable spacecraft. It's still going to have a very high level of reusability. All right, there goes RL-10. There goes the Centaur. I wish we had more live video. I feel like we're watching Kerbal Space Program. It doesn't exactly look like an X-Wing fighter.
And now Starliner has separated from this Centaur upper stage. We have a big thank you to our partners at ULA, providing Butch and Sonny a smooth ride.
Hello, Halsey.
To space.
That is not the end of today's.
It is.
Orbit activity, though.
It is me talking.
We'll now be getting ready for the orbital insertion burn, which comes
How are
31
you?
minutes after flight.
It's very nice to have you here.
About 15 minutes away now. Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore will be getting their tablets out and doing a few other activities to get Starliner ready for that.
My understanding, by the way, is that Starliner, while perfectly capable of being flown in an automated fashion,
the International Space Station,
and it will be flown largely in an automated fashion on this flight, seems to have more manual modes than the Crew Dragon does. And if you've watched Crew Dragon fly, you've seen that the astronauts and passengers aboard spend a lot of time monitoring systems, touching touch screens, and I believe also using tablets. They don't do a lot of flying with joysticks or other manual control systems.
Starliner with astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams on board launched from Florida to Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Launch Pad 41 at 9:52 a.m. Central, 10:52 a.m. Eastern today, and they have now made it into orbit.
Nominal TDRS show MDL is active. You have good targeting.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Halsey. I appreciate you coming over and stopping by and joining us. We have quite a few of the other regulars here from Twitch.
With the call
Sarah, I 100% agree with you.
Information about Starliner's TDRS schedule being good means that good communication.
I'm a civilian light airplane pilot,
relay data satellites
and the lack of manual flight controls and lack of manual flying modes as part of the mission plans hurts me a little bit. It kills me just a little bit inside. Yeah, Halsey, I think everybody here is thrilled. The launch itself was beautiful. It looked like they had a very nominal ascent. And so far, things look to be all quite nominal. We'll see. There'll be a NASA press conference, probably in a couple of hours, and they will go through any off-nominal events.
And Houston Starliner, we are on the tablets and in insertion monitor.
I agree with you, Sarah.
Copy tablets, we're with you, insertion monitor.
Speaking of tablets, they are on their tablets now.
So the crew
kids today
have their tablets out, so no longer using the paper procedures now that the vehicle has stopped moving so quickly.
Yeah, I do feel like they have passed the major risk points. Anytime you've got staging, that is absolutely a risk point.
So there's a handful of things that the crew's going to do now, mostly just
prepare. And so at this moment, they're basically taking stock of how things went.
For the upcoming orbital insertion burn.
They are getting ready to, as they just said on the commentary. Hello, Mongo. On the commentary, they're talking about preparing for the orbital insertion burn. Basically, that low altitude flight is coming to an end, and they realized that the status is green to go toward the space station, and they're going to be basically starting to climb uphill.
Upcoming in about 4 minutes, Starliner is going to start to orient itself in the direction it needs to do the orbital
and Halsey,
burn.
I don't have an exact time tomorrow for Starliner. I am planning on doing it in exactly the same way that we're doing this. I will be here. The URL will probably be different. In fact, I know it will be for the video stream. And sadly,
Starliner last arm is off. Backup control switches, enable one on, enable two off. SMRCS is the mode.
I was just pausing to let Butch talk there. SpaceX is streaming to Twitter. And yes, I'm calling it Twitter again, just for if you just got here. And that is a little bit more difficult to capture with quality. They've stopped streaming to YouTube, and since it's a private mission being conducted for their own purposes, they're not flying for NASA. They won't be streaming to NASA's YouTube channel. Yep. Rest well, Fuda. Rest well. Thank you for joining me, my friend. You take care. I'll be live on Twitch tonight and tomorrow night. If you can come by and say hello, love to see you. There you go, Dead Horse. This definitely has a Kerbal Space Program vibe. Sleep well, though, in the meantime, my friend.
Things will be pretty quiet as Starliner gets into position for the orbital insertion burn. That's still about 10 minutes away. Starliner is actually designed to be pretty autonomous, and in fact, docked with the space station on its last trip around without the help of any crew on board. But we do still want to know that if needed, Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams could take control and manually abort the spacecraft's approach to the station if they needed to. So to prove that, one of the few things on their agenda after they reach orbit will be to perform a test of the manual piloting mode.
So there we go. That actually touches on something that we were just discussing. It's basically an automated flight, except for where they wish to test the manual
pointing Starliner's
override
nose
systems
towards the Earth so that its communication antenna on the back of the service module is pointed at the satellites, the teeter satellites that allow it to communicate with the team on the ground. They'll then move Starliner so that its solar arrays are pointed at the sun, showing they could charge Starliner's internal batteries as needed. And they'll follow that up with a demonstration of the star trackers, one of the ways that Starliner determines where it is in space, pointing Starliner away from Earth so that the system, the Vesta system, can get a good look at the stars.
The next step will be for the crew to manually speed Starliner up and then slow back down, which will slightly raise and then lower their orbit and prove that they can manually break away from the orbit that the space station is in if they needed to. At that point, they can move on to the last items of the
test. Still no action on your cabin temp. You're in a good config. It's 74 degrees in there. Yeah, that's just due to that T2 sensor sitting beside the light. So we're actually going to inhibit that particular sensor. We'll let you know when we bring it back online.
Okay, great. Looks like we're on our way to thrust align.
Hello, how are you? Good to see you. I do know who you are from my Twitch community.
Calling up that the crew can ignore some alarms they're seeing on the temperatures inside Starliner. That's
absolutely
just a result of one of the sensors being next to a light.
I think we both understand.
It sounds like the crew are pretty comfortable and are getting into
why the automation exists and why it's being implemented in this application.
After they have manually broken away from the orbit of, proven that they can manually break away from the orbit of the space station, they are going to.
I hope you're doing well, Thilo.
Items of their test for tonight. That's
so my plan right now is to stick with you and stick with this through orbital insertion, which is about another 10 minutes away. I don't know that there'll be much to comment on after that. And just a reminder, I'm planning to be back tomorrow morning, and I'm, of course, streaming tonight on Twitch. I'll be back tomorrow morning, and we'll be doing this again for the Starship flight.
We've still got about
it's quite a week of activity.
Fire up the engines for that burn.
Not too far down the path, the NASA X-59 supersonic low boom demonstrator.
Starliner, we did not see the hand controller deflection. Just wanted to know if you did that yet.
We'll be doing an engine fire up. Not today.
All good.
Yeah, I got 2 hours sleep last night, Tilo. I will go back to bed after this. Hopefully, although I had some caffeine. It's interesting how they colored the thrusters differently to make it easier to detect which one is firing. That's the first time I think I can recall seeing that. It probably has been done before, but that's the first time I've ever noticed it. I'm sorry about that, Sarah. I've been thinking about trying to start an hour earlier because I'd like to go to bed earlier, but the days tend to get consumed and I don't have enough time to start on time as it is. Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. One of the amazing things about doing the Twitch show is that I've come to know people all over the world. It's something I tell my friends all the time, how much I enjoy it.
That everything is looking like
having a global community
for the orbital insertion burn. Now less than 5 minutes away. Starliner is currently about 102 miles above the Mediterranean Sea, heading southeast over India in the next few minutes.
So they've achieved over 100 miles of altitude in 26
Starliner,
minutes.
Good config for the OI burn.
Good config for
Thanks,
OI.
Mongo. Are you doing well, buddy? I know you said you're having coffee.
And good config from the OI burn.
Thank you so much,
Control
Halsey.
has noted
Appreciate it
that
very much.
Starliner is pointed in the direction
You're
it needs
always
to for
welcome.
the OI burn.
Always welcome.
It should also be about the time that the crew are using their tablets for their procedures, also charging them, keeping them topped up for the rest of the rendezvous.
We unfortunately won't have a view of Williams and Wilmore as they work through this procedure. Although we had a view of them from inside the cabin on the ground, Starliner isn't able to send that view to us again until it gets to the International Space Station. So you'll be seeing this screen quite a bit as Starliner was getting into the right position for the burn. And actually just now you can see some of the engines firing that help it steer and move around in space. And you can also see what attitude it's in at any given time. Lots of good information on the screen.
It is. A lot of this information actually directly mimics the views that the crew is seeing, especially the one in the upper left-hand panel. That is an exact copy of the display the crew is using for their attitude directional indicator. It also covers what mode their translational hand controller and the translational pointing is in. On the left side, on the right side, the pointing guidance, which tells the Starliner in
Oh my gosh,
automated
Mongo.
mode which direction to point, or when in manual mode, which direction the crew needs to move the vehicle.
Yeah, you don't want the potatoes to rot. So we've heard a confirmation there
and
that
following back up a little bit on
the way that Starliner's
there
been
is
built.
a planned upgrade of the Mustang system that we should see on our PCM-1 mission, and that will include live feeds from inside the cockpit.
There we go.
And the Mustang system is the cameras that we were seeing views from earlier.
Their video transmission system will be getting an upgrade eventually, but we're not going to see a live feed from the cockpit or the cabin until they get to the space station.
Without being directly right in their face while they're inside the cockpit during pre-launch. But once they're in orbit, they've gotten out of their seats a little bit, and we should be able to see a little bit more around the cabin.
We'll, though, as you've already heard, continue to hear regular audio updates from the crew. Everything going well now that...
so the view in the lower left-hand corner is the view, simulated view, looking down from space, and the
burn that will be kind of
green, brownish background is meant to indicate the terrain over the part of the Earth that they're presently flying.
Took place at 10:52
That's why you're also
Eastern
seeing it change.
Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams launched inside the first Starliner to carry crew members on board from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Launch Pad 41.
Hello, Spider. Good morning, my friend.
Minutes later, and now we are just again waiting for this
about 2 hours sleep. I'm going to try and sneak back a few after the show ends. It's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Hope your whole family's doing well.
12:15 p.m. Eastern, 11:15 a.m. Central tomorrow.
We're going to be going for probably another 10 minutes or so. Hopefully we'll get through the orbital insertion burn.
And we're coming up at about 40 seconds.
And have a chance to wrap up with the lovely folks here.
This burn
after that goes hopefully nominally
out of its slightly suborbital trajectory and push it up to an altitude that will allow us to catch up with ISS for a rendezvous later tomorrow.
15 seconds left to go, and once again you'll be able to see those engines firing on this digital screen here that show when the burn has started.
2 seconds.
All right, burn has begun. They've really gone all in on the color coding.
Here in Houston, seeing 4 good OMACs, good burn.
you take a look, that was a good OI burn. You're maneuvering to NavCal 1.
These look like happy controllers.
OI burn, going to NavCal 1.
And with that call up, both crew and flight controllers agreeing that that was a good OI burn. I'm looking at the trajectory plot here.
That means orbital insertion.
I see our trajectory pointing us directly up to the altitude we need to go to for the next burn. Right now, Starliner is moving into NavCal mode, or NavCal attitude. That's going to be the first of several positions that Starliner, directions that Starliner points itself to.
Yeah, I'm very happy for the entire team.
Starliner and update the
from Calypso all the way back to the factory where they build these systems and all the subcontractors. This has been a long day coming.
And of course, you're seeing lots of happy faces and cheers here in Florida. Everybody glad to see Starliner safely in orbit with Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams in tow, sending it on its way to the International Space Station for docking tomorrow at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Once again, Starliner safely on orbit, has conducted a good orbital insertion burn and is on its way.
All right. Well, folks, what do you think? This is a good place to call it a wrap. Let old Aero go try and get a little bit of sleep and prepare for a pretty interesting stream we got up tonight on Twitch. 4 more hours.
Yeah, you do have good cooling. The sublimator is working. We are watching it, though, because the water usage is just a little more than we thought we were going to see. You probably noticed that. It's a reason for the advisory there. From the ground, we'd like to swap you over to the other leg. So we're going to close sublimator leg 1, wait for about 60 seconds, and then open up leg 2. You'll see us do that. No impact or action.
So there's
Okay, we copy. We'll be watching. Thank you.
Something that is still within safe parameters. It sounds like a cooling system, or perhaps some other environmental control system, or a system.
Joshua Kutrick there again, giving the crew some words about information they're seeing on orbit. This one related to sublimators, which are used to cool the spacecraft down. But just letting them know that there's nothing that they need to be concerned about. The team will keep watching that. In the meantime, as Starliner begins making its way to the International Space Station, we're going to check in with Rob Navius in the International Space Station Flight Control Room. Rob?
Yeah, thanks very much, Brandy.
I'm going to drop the volume down here just so we can.
The work now just beginning for.
We could be as much alone as we can possibly be here. I'll leave the video up. Yeah, indeed, Spider. The plan is to start at the normal time, not late. And if I can get a little bit of sleep in, that'll make it a bit easier. But there's a kind of an interesting announcement that'll be taking place tonight, and that will affect the streams in a positive way for the rest of the month. So looking forward to sharing that news with everybody. But yeah, there's apparently a bit of a cooling system, off nominal indication of higher than expected water use. The controller didn't seem to sound too concerned about that, but it sounded like they were going to be switching over to what he described as a different leg, which just sounds like it's a parallel system. It doesn't sound like it's a backup necessarily even. And they're going to keep an eye on the water use. That's the last update that we were listening to there from. Yes, tomorrow, Mongo. Thank you so much for the kind words and always for being such a wonderful part of this community, my friend. Tomorrow is Starship. Today was Starliner. Today is the Calypso Starliner built by Boeing. Tomorrow is the Starship built by SpaceX. Tomorrow will be test flight 4. Again, they're not planning on landing. I'm going to go ahead and mute this all the way. They're not planning on landing under control either the Super Heavy booster or the Starship itself. They're planning on having, if they are successful with all their mission goals, controlled reentry and controlled touchdown into the water for both Super Heavy booster as well as the Starship itself after it has traversed a good part of the globe and comes down in the Indian Ocean. They were not under control on test flight 3. The heavy booster was destroyed before coming into contact with the water, and the Starship disintegrated essentially during the reentry. It had lost directional control and was not oriented correctly for reentry. And despite the amazing video that was fed to us, that suboptimal orientation led to the loss of the vehicle during the reentry process on the Starship. But that's for tomorrow. That's for tomorrow. I think there's a lot of happy folks, justifiably happy folks at NASA, at United Launch Alliance, and at Boeing, and all of the contractors and their families that contributed the parts and pieces that went into today's successful, I believe, successful launch of the Boeing CST-100 Starliner. Calypso is the ship's name, named by Sonny Williams, as a matter of fact, to honor Jacques Cousteau and the ship that he sailed on so many beloved television programs, The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau. His converted minesweeper was called Calypso. Let's call it a wrap there, my friends. Unless there's anything else you'd like to chat about in chat. Yeah, it was a converted minesweeper, Calypso. Hey, Cheap, how are you, my friend? Good to see you. Yeah, Mongo, I became a documentary filmmaker in part because I was inspired by Jacques Cousteau and the television programs, The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau. I saw programs there that were informative, but yet incredibly entertaining and beautifully, beautifully shot. And I thought to myself, I would love to do that. It's why my production company has a logo that is a flying fish, and I learned to scuba dive. And I learned to sail. Thank you, Sarah. I was so thrilled to have you here. Thank you for participating so beautifully in the chat. Love your expert knowledge and your enthusiasm. Really, really a lovely surprise to have you here. Jeep, I hope you're doing well, buddy. Thank you for showing up. Yeah, this has been delightful. The only thing that would have made it better is if I'd had more sleep. We'll be doing this hopefully on the regular. The space stuff that's dedicated like this will probably always be here on YouTube. Cold Heart Death, Master Snake, my friend. You have a wonderful time zone. You get some rest as well. I think it's probably the middle of the night where you are, and I hope we can see you soon on Twitch or back here tomorrow on the Starship flight. Jimmy Buffett once wrote about a beach house on the moon. Jeep. Beach house? That would probably make it an Airbnb, not a hotel, not a motel. All right, let's go to the somewhat simpler ending stream screen. Again, no webcam on here this morning. I figured you wanted to most definitely not see my face at Oh Dark Early for me and see the rocket launch instead. So no plans to do that. I wish you all and your families an absolutely wonderful day. And I hope you all fare well until we get to see each other again. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me today. You made this a lot more fun as ever. The community is just absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Dead Horse. Thank you, buddy, for being here. Thank you for being such a great cheerleader and friend for all these years now. Appreciate you very, very much. I say it a lot, but I truly love my community. I feel really, really, really blessed. And hopefully I'll get to see some of you tonight. In the meantime, thank you, and I will wrap it there. Bye-bye.